Close your eyes for a moment. No sound, no touch, no sight, no smell, no taste. Even if the entire world still exists around you, even if every object, every person, every piece of information is right there, it might as well not be. Without your senses, you have no interface to reality. Your body, your eyes, your ears, hands, and brain is not just the thing that experiences the world, it is the interface that allows you to interact with it. Take away the interface, and everything becomes invisible. Everything becomes inaccessible. The same is true for data. Data can exist perfectly, safely, and forever in a database, on a server, on a hard drive, buried in a data center. But without an interface, it's effectively invisible, essentially a black box. All that value locked away. In the last episode, we talked about databases, how information is stored, organized, and structured. Today, we're talking about the other half of the system, interfaces, how humans interact with data. I'm your host, Justin, from Automate Office Work. This is Interfaces for Humans. I want to be upfront with you. This episode might be a little long, but I think interfaces are one of the most underappreciated parts of any office system. They're everywhere, they shape everything, and almost no one thinks about them intentionally. Automation lives or dies in this middle layer. Let's dig in. What is an interface really? Let's start with the definition because the word interface gets used loosely. An interface is anything that allows two systems to interact with each other. Interface, interaction. Your eyes are an interface between light and your brain. A steering wheel is an interface between a car and a driver. A keyboard is an interface between your thoughts and a computer. A menu at a restaurant is an interface between a kitchen and a customer. Here's the key insight. An interface does not create meaning, it translates it. Data lives in databases. Meaning lives in humans. Interfaces are the bridge. Paper is an interface. Screens are interfaces. Buttons are interfaces. Forms are interfaces. Even language itself is an interface. It's the agreed upon system that lets one mind communicate with another. When we talk about office automation, we're not just designing systems. We're designing how humans will experience those systems. We're designing the bridge. And that changes everything. Data without interfaces is useless. Or let me put that another way. It's meaningless. Imagine the most perfectly designed database in the world. Every field normalized, every relationship correct, every record pristine. It's a masterpiece of information architecture. Now imagine there's no way to view it. No screen, no report, no search, no printout, just the data existing perfectly, silently, invisibly. It might as well not even exist. Databases only become valuable when someone can see the data, understand the data, change the data, and that always requires an interface. This is why I always say you can't automate what you can't see. Before you think about automating a process, you have to ask, how does this information currently become visible? How does someone currently interact with it? And is that interface helping or hurting? Interfaces shape behavior. The office examples. Here's something subtle but powerful, and I want to spend some time on this. People behave the way interfaces allow them to behave. This is not a small point. This is the heart of why office systems succeed or fail. Let me walk you through some very concrete office examples. And I'm going to start with paper. No technology at all, because I think that's where the real understanding begins. Example one, the paper sign-in sheet. Picture a front desk at a small office. A visitor walks in. The receptionist hands them a clipboard with a lined sheet of paper. At the top, it says, "Please sign in." There are three columns for name, company, who you are visiting, time. That clipboard is an interface. The paper form is an interface. Now watch what happens in practice. Some visitors write their full name neatly. Others scrawl something illegible. One person skips company because they're a freelancer and feel awkward about it. Another writes the time as 10-ish. Someone else doesn't notice the "who are you visiting" column and leaves it blank. At the end of the week, the office manager tries to compile a list of everyone who visited. Half the data is unusable. Was this a people problem? No, this was an interface problem. The form allowed too many behaviors. It didn't guide the user, it didn't enforce anything. Chaos became the interface. Now imagine a slightly redesigned form. The columns are wider. There's a printed example at the top. Example: Jane Smith, Acme Corp. Meeting with John, 10 a.m. The time column has a small clock icon. Required fields are marked with an asterisk. Suddenly, data quality improves without any technology at all. The interface was redesigned. The behavior changed. Now add technology, a tablet with a digital sign-in app. Required fields won't let you proceed without filling them in. Time is auto-filled. Visitor badges print automatically. Data flows directly to a spreadsheet. Same process, three different interfaces, three very different outcomes. The technology didn't create the improvement. Better interface design did. Technology just made it faster and more consistent. Example 2, the paper expense report. Here's another classic. It's the end of the month. An employee needs to submit expenses. The company gives them a paper form, or maybe a Word document they print out, and asks them to fill in receipts, amounts, categories, and get a manager signature. What happens? People lose receipts. They guess at categories. They round numbers. They forget to get signatures. The form sits on someone's desk for 2 weeks. The finance team receives a pile of forms with different handwriting, different interpretations of what meals versus entertainment means, and receipts taped at odd angles. Again, not a people problem, an interface problem. The paper form allowed inconsistency. It required effort at every step. It created friction. Now imagine a simple improvement, still no technology, a pre-printed form that has a drop-down menu of categories printed on it. So the employee circles the right one instead of writing it freehand. A checklist at the bottom. Receipt attached, manager signature obtained, date filled in. That alone reduces errors significantly. Now add technology, an expense app where employees photograph receipts on their phone. The app reads the amount automatically. Categories are a dropdown. The manager approves with a tap. Data flows into accounting software. The process is the same, but the interface transformed the experience and the data quality at every stage. Example 3, the shared notebook. A team keeps a shared notebook in the break room. Anyone can write down issues, ideas, follow up tasks. It seems collaborative and low friction. But look at what actually happens. Some people write dates, others don't. Items never get marked complete. Nobody is assigned responsibility. The notebook becomes a historical record of complaints with no action taken. The interface, a blank lined notebook, allowed any behavior and enforced none. It had no structure for accountability. A simple redesign, pre-printed pages with columns for date, issue/idea, owner, status, and a resolved checkbox. Now the same notebook becomes a basic task tracker. The structure changes the behavior. And technology, a shared digital task board. Items can be assigned. Status updates are visible to everyone. Nothing gets lost. Completed items are archived, not crossed out. Paper taught us the lesson. Technology scaled it. The takeaway on behavior. In each of these examples, the insight is the same. The interface shaped what was possible, what was easy, and what was hard. If a form only allows one answer, people will choose one answer. If an inbox is the easiest way to contact you, everything becomes an email. If a spreadsheet has no required fields, data quality collapses. Interfaces don't just display data, they shape decisions. That means interfaces are never neutral. They encourage some behaviors and discourage others. Designing interfaces without intention is how chaos sneaks in. In fact, you could even say chaos becomes the interface. A brief history of computer interfaces. To understand where we're going with office automation, it helps to understand where interfaces came from. This is a quick history, but it has real lessons for the tools you use today. The command line, infinite power, tiny doorway. Early computers had a single interface, the command line. You typed commands. The computer responded with text. If you knew the commands, and there could be hundreds of them, you could do almost anything. The input was infinite. You could ask the system almost anything as long as you knew the right syntax. But the output was limited, text only, one screen at a time, no images, not even color. And the barrier to entry was enormous. You had to memorize all those hundreds of commands. There were no hints. The system assumed you already knew what you were doing. This was powerful, flexible, and completely inaccessible to most people. The graphical user interface. Fewer inputs, richer output. Then came windows, icons, menus, and buttons. The graphical user interface, or GUI. Suddenly, you could see data. You could click instead of memorizing commands. You could drag, drop, and browse. The visual metaphors, folders, desktops, trash cans, made the invisible visible. The trade off? Inputs became limited. You could only click on what the designer placed. You could only do what the buttons allowed you to do. But the output became rich. Charts, images, layout, color, and most importantly, regular people could use it. This meant less raw power, but far more usability. This is the trade off we still live with today. Touchscreens, removing the intermediary. Touchscreens took the graphical interface one step further. They removed the mouse. You now interact directly with what you see. Your finger becomes the cursor. This made interfaces even more accessible. Even a child could use a tablet before they can read, but it also created new constraints. Touch interfaces have to be bigger, simpler, more forgiving of imprecision. They're optimized for consuming, not creating, which is why you probably wouldn't write a financial model on a phone, but you would approve an expense report. The interface trade off, power versus usability. Here's a paradox every interface designer faces, and it applies to your office tools just as much to professional software. If something is very easy to use, it is often not very powerful. If something is very powerful, it often requires training to use it. A calculator is easy. Excel is powerful. A checkbox is easy. A fully flexible data model, powerful. Let's make this concrete with an office example. The booking request in 3 versions. Imagine your team receives requests to book meeting rooms. Here are 3 ways to handle it. Version 1, anyone can walk to a whiteboard on the conference room door and write their name and time. Easy, flexible. Also, constant double bookings, illegible handwriting, and no way to check availability from your desk. Version 2, there's an email address, roomrequest@company.com, and you send a message with the details. More structured, but still manual. Someone has to read every email, check for conflicts, and reply. The interface is flexible but requires human effort to process. Version 3, a booking form. You choose a room from a dropdown, select a date and time from a calendar widget, enter a meeting name. The system checks for conflicts automatically. You get a confirmation. Done. Version 3 is less flexible. You can't request a room outside normal business hours easily. You can't add special notes without a dedicated field, but it's dramatically more efficient and produces clean data. Good interfaces don't eliminate complexity, they manage it intentionally. They decide what should be simple, what should be hidden, and what requires training. Office automation fails when tools are either so simple they can't handle reality or so complex that no one uses them. Interfaces and databases are a paired system. Let's talk about the relationship between interfaces and databases, because this is often misunderstood. Databases store organized data. Interfaces allow humans to record, retrieve, and update that data. They are not separate systems. They are two halves of the same system. Here's a good way to think about it. A spreadsheet is both. It's a database. It has rows and columns. It stores information. It can be queried and filtered, but it's also an interface. It has cells that you type into, buttons you click, formulas you write, filters that you can apply. The same is true of a calendar. It's a database of events, but it's also an interface for managing your time. Automation works best when data is structured for machines and interfaces are designed for humans. You need both in balance. The inventory list, a real example. Let's say you manage supplies for an office. You keep track of what you have in a paper logbook on a shelf. Item name, quantity, date last restocked, vendor. That logbook is a database and an interface all in one. It's not searchable, it's not sortable, but it exists and people can read it. Problems start quickly. Someone updates the quantity but forgets the date. Two people update the same row and create confusion. The logbook fills up and you start a new one, losing continuity. Now let's move it to a shared spreadsheet. Now multiple people can update it. You can sort by quantity to find what's running low. You can add a reorder column with a checkbox. A formula can highlight rows in red when stock drops below a threshold. The data structure is the same, but the interface now makes the data far more useful. And the rule holds, you can't fix bad data with a pretty interface, also known as lipstick on a pig. And you can't use good data without a usable interface. You need both. Designing interfaces with intention, the office work-through. When you build systems at work, even simple ones, you are already designing interfaces. A form you create, a spreadsheet you share, an email template, a folder structure. All of these are interfaces. Here are some questions to ask intentionally when you design any office interface. Who is the user? And what do they already know? A form for a finance professional can use accounting terminology and assume familiarity with accounting codes. A form for a field technician needs to be simple, mobile friendly, and use plain language. The same underlying data, but very different interfaces. A paper example, the exit interview form at a company. If it uses HR jargon, employees won't fill it out honestly. They'll just check boxes to get out the door. A plain language version with open-ended questions gets far richer responses. Question 2. What decision are the people making? Interfaces should surface the information needed to make a decision and hide everything else. A manager approving time off requests needs to see who's asking, what dates, how much time off do they have left, and who else is already out. They don't need the employee's full HR file. A paper example. A time off request form that includes a team calendar snapshot, a simple grid showing who's already off that week. The manager can approve or deny with all the relevant context right there. Another question: what mistakes are easy to make? Good interfaces make the right things easy and the wrong things hard. A paper example: a purchase order form that lists approved vendors on the back. By putting the information right there, the interface reduces the chance of using an unapproved vendor without any system enforcement at all. A digital example: a drop down for vendor selection means only approved vendors are options. You've made the wrong choice not just hard, but impossible. Another question: what should be impossible? This is the most powerful question. What is the one thing that, if it happened, would cause real damage? In a paper system, you can make things hard by adding extra steps: a second signature, a physical counter signature, a supervisor review stamp. It's friction by design. In a digital system, you can make things truly impossible: a form field that won't accept a negative number, a workflow that won't advance without an attached receipt, a process that automatically alerts a manager if an amount exceeds a threshold. The interface enforces the rules protect the system. Now, generative AI, back to the command line and beyond. Now, something fascinating is happening with artificial intelligence, and I want to spend some minutes on it because it's directly relevant to office automation. With generative AI tools, the kind you can type or speak to naturally, we've essentially gone back to the command line. You type text, the system responds. The input is infinite. You can ask almost anything in plain language. But unlike the original command line, the system now understands meaning, not just syntax. You don't have to memorize commands. You just have to be able to describe what you want. This is extraordinary. It means that for the first time, a very powerful interface is also relatively accessible, but it's rough around the edges. You have to know how to ask questions well. You have to evaluate the output. You have to know when the system is hallucinating versus when it's correct. These are skills. They take time to develop. History suggests a predictable cycle. Power comes first, usability comes later. The command line became the GUI. The GUI became the touchscreen. AI today feels like early computing: incredible capability, rough interfaces, a wide open opportunity for whoever figures out how to make it usable for ordinary office work. The question isn't whether AI will transform office interfaces. It will. The question is, will the organizations that adapt early build better systems? Or will they just add AI on top of broken ones? Chaos doesn't care if your chaos is paper or artificial intelligence. Your office is an interface. Here's the idea I want to leave you with, the one that most people miss. Your office environment itself is an interface. It's how people interact with you. Think about how people interact with you and your team right now. How do requests come in? How do questions get answered? How do approvals get made? If everything comes in randomly, a mix of emails, Slack messages, walk up conversations, phone calls, sticky notes, then your interface to the world is chaotic. And you will behave chaotically because the interface is forcing you to. That's not a people problem, that's an interface problem. And you know who is best positioned to fix this problem? It's not the people coming to make requests from you. It's you. Look in the mirror. You are the problem. You are the person who can fix it. Designing your intake interface before and after technology. Let's say you're a project manager. People need things from you constantly: approvals, status updates, new project requests, resource questions. The paper slash low tech version, you create a simple 2-page form. Page one is for new project requests: name, description, deadline, priority, budget, estimate. Page 2 is for resource requests: what, when, for how long, who it's for. You put a stack of each form on your desk with a labeled inbox tray. Now, anyone who needs something fills out the form and they put it in the tray. You process the tray once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Walk up interruptions drop dramatically. Data is consistent, nothing gets lost. Now, the digital version of this, the same forms, now as a web form or a shared intake spreadsheet. Submissions come in automatically. You get a notification. You can sort by priority or deadline. You can share the status back with the requester. The structure was the breakthrough. The technology only accelerated it. You are allowed to design your own interface. This is something I want to say clearly because I think people don't always realize it. You are allowed to design how others interact with you. You can create a request form. You can set a shared inbox. You can establish a calendar for office hours. You can define a standard process for how decisions get made. This isn't bureaucracy. This is interface design. And it's one of the highest leverage things you can do to reduce chaos in your work life. Before even automating a single thing, build the bridge on purpose. Let's bring this together. Databases store the past. Interfaces shape the present. And automation connects them to the future. If databases are the memory of your organization, interfaces are its senses. And just like your own senses, you don't notice them when they work well. You only notice them when they don't. So build with intention. Start with paper. Start with a form, a process, a checklist. Get the logic right. Get the structure right. Make the things easy. Make the right things easy and the wrong things hard. Then add technology to make it faster, more consistent, and more scalable. You can even turn to AI, and now you're able to train the AI. You can also make multiple kinds of interfaces. Maybe some people prefer just going to a form. Other people might like the idea of going to a blank, empty chat bot kind of a box, and they can start trying to have their random conversation. But now you see the AI can be trained on what a proper conversation looks like, and it can hallucinate less. But you notice we have to build the proper interfaces first and then bring in technology. Technology is not the fix. Technology is the amplifier. Whatever interface you build, it gets louder with technology. Until next time, remember, chaos is rarely caused by bad people. It's usually caused by bad interfaces that allow them to behave badly or not in the appropriate way. Thanks for listening to Automate Office Work. If this episode has resonated with you, please share it with someone who's dealing with a chaotic system at work. This might be exactly what they need. All right, so that is the end of the prepared content for today. I do have something else to share. It's another resource that I have created. So I'll take this away. On my website, automateofficework.com, you can see all kinds of products and resources. You can come down and you can see a list of all the podcast episodes that have been done so far. Today is number 67, Interfaces for Humans. And once this is recorded, I will create links to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. It is broadcast every Friday live. So if you do want to come on, you can leave live comments, which I can see and respond to. Or you can watch it later, or even just listen to it if you like. Okay. Below this, I have all kinds of free resources, and I have created a new resource today. It's under articles. It is an article called Interfaces, And so I'm going to click on this and it goes to the page automateofficework.com/interfaces. And here there will be a link to this podcast. As well as below that, I have created an online survey for you and your team where you can audit the health of your team interfaces. It's called a team interface health audit. It's a 50-point diagnostic for requesters, stakeholders, and customer interactions. Okay, it's broken up into several categories. The very first category is something that we didn't touch on today, but I think it's very important, especially as we have more and more technology that opens up the ability. But it's inclusivity and accessibility. For example, not everybody can actually read a screen. There are some people who are legally blind and they need a screen reader to be able to read whatever form or resources you're giving them. So do an audit. Make sure that whatever tools and interfaces you're creating, that they're accessible to people using these screen readers. So the very first question is screen reader support. And this each one of these questions starts with like the perfect level. It says level 2, intake forms work with screen readers. Isn't that great? People can access our tools with the tools that help them. The next level below that, forms are standard HTML, but they're never tested for accessibility. And level 0, no consideration for visual impairments. Is your team even thinking about these people? The next question is like color contrast. Another question for global language support. We now work in these global organizations. Level 0 for this global language is complex jargon and idioms are common. Not everybody speaks English as a native language. Some people struggle with English. So knock it off. Stop using this complex jargon and idioms that make no sense. Level 1 is English only, but technical jargon is defined. Like, that's great. And level 2, key forms and documents are translated or written in global English. No idioms allowed. None of this hit the road kind of stuff or going to make a touchdown. A lot of people outside the US don't understand what you're saying. So speak in a way that everybody can understand. Next is cognitive accessibility, time independence. Like, don't just have fixed office hours that are the only way people can get help. We're global now. Make it so that people can reach you even when you're out of the office, so that they can submit a request. Yeah, and I have so many of these categories: intake and request management. See, the next one is expectation management. How do you communicate to people what they can expect from you? Next one is stakeholder communication, like roadmap sharing, status updates, meeting efficiency, decision documentation, crisis communication, and documentation and self-service, and feedback and improvement, tooling and friction. Like, even inside of here, there's one for mobile friendliness. Are your interfaces available on mobile devices? Are people even asking this? Because so much work is done now on the go, and we all have mobile phones with us. Why is your form or your interface only available on a desktop computer when we're all on phones traveling around and such? So yeah, knowledge transfer, escalation, and crisis. Like, do you allow people to escalate things when there's an emergency? Are they able to redirect it quicker and get faster help? Or is everything an emergency? The saying, if everything's an emergency, then nothing is. Number 10, cultural alignment. So things like tone of voice, empathy mapping, boundary setting, celebration of a success. transparency of values. So you can go through each one of these. You grade yourself on each of these, and as you go along, at the bottom, you see the this progress bar. It gives you the how much completed you're done, and it gives you a maturity score based on whether you've picked level 0, 1, or 2. And so it'll accumulate these. Um, I'll go back to the top. There's a brief introduction for how you can use this. It says this audit is designed to help teams reflect honestly on how they interface with the rest of the organization. Beyond a simple diagnostic, it serves as a catalyst for the necessary conversations that bridge the gap between team output and stakeholder expectations. By completing this individually and aggregating results, teams can safely surface friction points and misalignments. It's the first step toward transforming your team from a black box into a transparent, high functioning service partner. Okay, I think that essentially sums it up, how to use this tool. So you can gauge where you're at. You can then safely have a conversation with your colleagues. You don't have to say, like, hey guys, I think this whole thing is broken. No, you don't have to say that if you don't feel safe being able to like speak the truth in these corporations. Instead, you can invite everybody to anonymously do this. You can aggregate them, and then you have the conversation with everyone. Maybe there's a trend around something, and everybody sees the problem, but nobody feels safe to be able to talk about it. Everybody is just in survival mode, right? All right, let's see if I have any comments from people today. Of course. I have somebody who says, "Of course, great point." I'm not sure at what point we were in the conversation of this. Thank you for running this. You're welcome, sir. Thank you. Amazing. Of course, great point. Yeah, this is the stuff that we're all struggling with, right? Especially when you're dealing with other departments, right? We expect, we swim in the water of our own department and we just expect, like, oh, people from another department, they should know exactly how to interface with me. Or we pride ourselves, we say we work on these personal relationships. Everybody knows which lawyer in the legal department they should reach out to, and then we offer such great service. Well, that's great for the people who actually have a connection, right, and know who to reach out to. What if I'm new? What if I'm like a new intern or the secretary of somebody, and they say, "Oh, go get this taken care of with the legal department." I have no idea how to reach out to the legal department, right? I don't have a personal relationship with somebody, so maybe you should set up these interfaces to be able to interact with the other departments. And also on the other end, when you are in the legal department and you have all these random people just emailing you and they don't know what to email, they don't know who to email, to you, it just looks like utter chaos, right? Like this person just emailed me. I don't know who they are. I don't know who this email needs to go to. Now, what? What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to forward this to like 3 friends? And then we have email ping pong going all around, right? So think about it from the perspective of the other person as well as yourself. Have some empathy, create the interfaces that are needed. Stop just being lazy and saying, well, they'll email me. No, email is not a great way. Email is not your only interface. And as I said, if the only way to reach out to you, to interface with you is by email, then guess what? Everything becomes an email. It doesn't need to be an email. We have all of these tools. And then I know a lot of people are thinking, well, now we have AI. We're just going to have AI read these emails. I'm sorry, that is so lazy. And as I said, AI is only going to amplify this chaos, right? Go back to that example of like, who am I supposed to email? What is supposed to be in the email? Okay, let's imagine I receive this random garbage email. The person doesn't know what they need. They don't know who needs to do it for them. And now I have AI reading it. What is AI going to do? It can't make heads or tails of this garbage, but it's going to do it fast. It's going to amplify it. It's going to make it so we can get like millions of these garbage emails and have garbage emails ping ponging all around. We don't need this. We need to first get our basics down. We need to create the proper interactions, and then technology comes in as a second layer. Technology doesn't solve the problems, it only makes them go faster. So we need to solve the problems first. So put in place an interface to go along with your database of information from the previous. All right, let's see. Well, it's been great. I hope that you get benefit from this type of content. My name is Justin. I am at automateofficework.com. I was a corporate lawyer for 10 years, only I had computer skills. So I was able to automate all of my admin work, is where I focused, because a lot of what we struggle with in the world of office work is just that. It's the admin work. It's the office work. It's not the high value stuff that I was struggling with. The high value work was actually enjoyable, but it was such a small part of what I actually did. Most of the time, I was chasing emails and signatures and updating spreadsheets, which was just a waste of time. We have computers, and you don't even need to go straight to AI with this. And actually, as I argue, AI doesn't know your context. It doesn't know your process. You need to identify your process and all the data points and all the possibilities. And then AI can be trained on that. And then you can bring in AI to make it go just a little bit faster. And in fact, AI can then be an additional interface. And this is another thing that I did not focus on in the previous content. But you don't have to just create a single interface. You can allow people to interface with you in different ways. An example is if a person wants to order a cake. Let's say we're in a bakery making cakes. Okay, how can a customer order a cake? Well, they can order on the phone. Okay, that's one interface. They can order from our website. Okay, that's another interface. And they can come in physically. And then there's a menu or a menu on the wall, and there's a person physically there who can talk to them. That's a third interface. Okay, you notice we're not forcing them to only go one way. You can set up multiple interfaces, and then the interfaces, they all have the same kind of menu, the same script. So no matter if you're going through on a phone or through a website or with a person, the data points, the experience, it's going to be the exact same. We're getting the same things with different interfaces. So as you're designing your interfaces, maybe think about doing the same thing. You can set up a form on your team's website. You can also put that same form. Let's say you have a salesperson who needs to be able to request things from you at a certain time. Well, your salesperson already has an interface platform where they are tracking their different deals, their different sales that they're doing with their customer. And maybe at the right stage, they are then prompted to make a request to your team. And you can put that in their interface. You can put that in Salesforce, or you can put it in Jira, whatever they need, wherever they are. Okay. Because this is another thing. Human beings do not like to switch between interfaces. We like whatever application we are in, we want to stay in that application. So if you are requiring people to leave where they are doing all of their work and then completely come to a different website or something, they're not going to like that very much. But you can make that as a possibility, but you can also give them the interface where they need it as well. So give people a choice. And this brings up another kind of interesting thing, that as technology goes forward, you have people who enjoy new ways of doing things, but you also have a lot of people who just say, no, I'm never going to do this again. And a simple example is think of your grandma, your grandmother. Uh, your grandmother might not want to own a cell phone, right? Your grandma says, why should I call on a cell phone when I can just send a letter in the mail like I've done for the last 80 years, right? And that's a fair question. Like what is the difference between sending a letter and calling someone on the phone to make an appointment? Well, you're getting the same data points either way, right? So as you think about implementing, setting up interfaces with these, implementing new technology, always remember you're going to have a percentage of people who will just refuse to use your new system. Not because your system is bad or anything, but it's just human nature. A percentage of people will say no, they never want to do it. So if the success of your technology or implementing your project depends on 100% engagement, remember there's about 10 to 15% of people who are just going to say no, and they're going to keep emailing you instead, or calling you, or they're going to go walk to the office of their friend. They're not going to go into your new platform, right? So I would suggest you make it flexible. So an example is that, yeah, you teach everybody in the company that this is the faster way, this is consistent, we get the exact data points we need from you. But let's say I do have an older person and they say, no, I want to go walk to Justin's office and have a conversation with him. Okay, so they do. Maybe I have to tell them, like, I'm sorry, old person, I don't have time for this, but let's talk in, say, like 2 weeks. Okay. They come by in 2 weeks. We have the conversation. And you know what I do? I pull up the system and the system goes through the conversation. It gives me the script, exactly what I need to pull out of them, and I submit it on their behalf. Okay. So think about making your interfaces flexible to meet human needs, because we are building for people. People at the end of the day are having their experience molded by the tools that we create. We're not just creating tools, we're creating how people experience the world, how they experience work. Okay. And I guess I want to emphasize that you're always doing four things with interfaces. You're making it easier to do something, or number two, you're making it possible to do something at all. So maybe it was impossible before, but now you've placed a field or a button to make it completely possible. So they're now empowered. They don't need to come to you, they can do it themselves. Number three, you're making something that you don't want them to do, you're making it more difficult. You can add friction by design, like I said before. You can make it so something gets escalated. You can make it so that they're required to do something else. They need to do something a little bit more. They need to attach something. They need to go get somebody's approval or signature. You can add the friction. And lastly, the last thing that we're doing with interfaces, if there is something that is absolutely catastrophic that will do real damage, make it so that the person cannot do it. Okay. Like, if I ever hear that somebody did something to bring down the company or something, I'm saying that's an interface problem. Why did they have the ability to do it? And why didn't we put in place the roadblocks, the guardrails? Okay. So I guess I'll wrap up there. My name is Justin. You can reach me at automateofficework.com. I got a great big book a call button, also a link to my LinkedIn profile. Let's connect. If you'd like to connect, I do offer all kinds of solutions from my expertise. I can give you consulting advice, point you in the right direction, which is very helpful. I can also give you custom solutions that use the Office 365 that you already have. We can make simple, profound solutions that meet you where you are to take you to where you need to go. And I also offer education if you need some help with raising the culture in your organization. I also have started packaging some of my more popular custom solutions. I have made them in a very generic way that we can just you buy it, and then we set it up in a very small amount of time, even only like 15 minutes, because I've already built such a general use kind of a thing, like you see here, Request Hub. Take in your requests not by emails. It's an intake system and also a request management system on the back end as well. Okay. Um, let's see. If you are interested in coming on the podcast as well, I do have several guests that are lined up. If you have expertise in any of these areas, especially areas that are not being talked about that people need to know, feel free to reach out to me and let's connect and collaborate on a podcast episode. So, with that, my name is Justin, and I wish you happy automating.